You ever order fiberglass parts and when they show up for your car, they just don't fit? I'm Sam Kimmel of StealthBuilt, and today I'm going to show you how to fit a set of fiberglass fenders that just don't fit to this 1940 Chevy. We're going to do everything from making the flange to getting the bodywork done and fully fit up these rear fenders. So stay tuned as I walk you through the process to get these fiberglass fenders fitted on a 1940 Chevy. Here is the 40 Chevy, and as I said, it's very low. Part of the problem is, as you can see, the tires are tucked really far into the fenders. Now, what we're planning to do is take the fiberglass fenders. These are still the steel ones that are on here. They got quite a bit of damage. They look like they're in okay shape, but the inside flange is completely gone. But what we're planning to do is put the fiberglass ones on here, figure out a spot where we can cut this, section it, add a strip in, and that way he'll have some clearance for his tire in the front. Now the back is a similar story. Somebody's already done some of the metal work, and what we're going to do is fit up these rear fenders, figure out how much clearance we need for these tires to be able to tuck up inside of there, and then we're going to modify the fender accordingly. I know that we also need to make a lip for the fender to fit onto the car, and then somebody else is going to come back and fix all the rusted and bodywork, at least. I think so. I haven't been asked to do it yet, but we'll see. Now, as I'd mentioned before, this car is very, very low. Kind of hard for me to show you, but I'm not sure who put these on here, but you can see we've got, some seriously low points on this car. Almost too low. This transmission cross member is, I don't know, maybe 3 inches off the ground. So I told them if I were them, I would definitely be reworking this rear suspension. Not sure who decided those bars were a good idea where they're at, because as I said, I don't think those are 2.5 inches off the ground. But anyway, where that makes it kind of a pain is getting it off of this trailer. This trailer has fairly steep ramps, and he told me that the cross member would snag here. So we may have to throw down some boards. I was going to leave it on the trailer because initially they just asked me to do the rear fenders. But I was just requested to do the front fenders too. So looks like we're going to be pulling it off the trailer. I just need to see what all I need to do to get this off the trailer without snagging it up. And I am by myself today, so this might be an adventure. All right, sometimes when you're working alone, you got to come up with a solution. And here's our solution. Got a strap hook to the front end here, going out to the forklift, and I'm slowly going to creep forward and just lower this bad boy right off the trailer. Well, I was going to attempt to take it off the trailer, but because everything is so low, literally every part underneath this car is snagging on the trailer. And yes, I could probably block up the, ramps and do a bunch of stuff. But I just need to work on these fenders, so I think that's going to take more time and effort than me climbing up and down from this trailer a few times. So I'm giving up on taking it off. I don't want to damage the car, and I don't want to have to try to get it back up on here later. So I'm going to leave it on there and just work on it on the trailer. Doesn't really change much. To be honest, maybe it'll be better. It'll be at a better height to work on it. So we'll find out. Well, I've got the first back fender sort of where it goes. And here's what we're doing here. So you can see there's a huge gap here. This is supposed to, I believe, tuck down under there and be a mounting area. But then it has this weird little area where it pops out, and then it just doesn't have a flange at all. I have no idea how these are actually supposed to go on here. Nothing fits even close to where it should. So I'm just gonna start working on it and cut it away and start forming it until it fits right. So what I'm gonna do now is I've traced out kind of, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little black line there, and there's another black line up here where I'm going to cut away some of that fender, try to get it positioned to where it touches the body, and hopefully, I mean, the shape seems just a little bit off, This car needs a bunch of body work, so that's something that they can work on later. But I'm just going to try to get these fenders fitted up, and then I'm going to make an inside flange to bolt this fender to that body. So you can see, got a pretty nice fitment here. This fender is a little bit too far this way, but like I said, this whole thing's getting body worked, and it's a custom car. We can't go back anymore because we're obviously, it's almost like this fender is too long by like ½ an inch. Now, could I come in here, cut this fender, shrink it? Yes. Do I think I should? No. Mainly because everything here is custom. So, you know, when it gets custom running boards, when it has the body work done, you know, I don't know what all's been done to this. I think what I'm going to do is leave the actual shape of this alone, other than right here. You can see where this dips and the body doesn't. We're going to have to fill that. So I'll bring some fiberglass up in here and I'll essentially blend that together. Won't be that drastic, but you can kind of get an idea what I'm saying. And this can be pushed in too. So, you know, this will be in here like this. The gap is a lot smaller, but that height difference, which is from right here to right here, we're going to have to do something about that. So the fender can't go up anymore because it's already flush here. So back here where it dips down, it's flush back here. So this center section right here, we're just going to add some fiberglass in along this line and blend that, you know, body line into this fender. I think the smartest thing to do is probably to go ahead and build the inner flange so we can get this thing bolted up. And then once I get this bolted on, since all this fits nice now, you can see that gap is like really, really nice. Build the inner flange, get this thing bolted up, and then I'll come back through and I'll add in the glass that goes from here to here. So this is why a lot of people say fiberglass sucks. This is why sometimes it gets a bad name. You buy a fender, it looks great, you go to fit it, and you find out that it fits perfect back here, fits great up front, but in the middle, the curvature isn't quite right. So I talked about a couple different ways to fix the fitment issue here, and what I actually decided to do is cut the flange off the back here that was sticking under. It was literally holding this thing from getting into position, and now you can see it's much closer. We have just a small gap here now. I think that's less than ½ an inch. Before it was like 3/4 of an inch. So it fits way nicer now that flange is gone. Now that we've got the fender relatively close to where we want it to go, it's time to build the flange. So first I take some masking tape and I get everything masked off. I don't want any of the resin getting on the actual car because that would make this flange hard to remove. So I get it all masked off, and then I just use a permanent marker to trace out exactly where that fender sits so I know where to put the metal tape. Now this metal tape is typically used in the HVAC industry. You can buy it at any hardware store, and what it does is it prevents the resin from leaking through. If I was just to use regular masking tape and put the fiberglass resin over the top, it would definitely eat into that tape and get behind it and you know, eat the adhesive and everything else. So we always use the metal tape as kind of a protective barrier between the resin and the other tape. Now we don't use just metal tape because it is super sticky and it would be hard to remove from the vehicle, so that's why we use the two different tapes. I also cut up a bunch of strips of fiberglass and just made up some standard laminating resin. And what I'm doing is using the cardboard as a way to apply the resin to the pieces and then applying those pieces to the vehicle. I want to make sure there's enough resin to wet out that glass, but I don't want to use so much resin that the fiberglass will fall off. Because when you're doing surfaces that are vertical or even inverted surfaces, you don't want to use too much resin, or the weight of it alone will make the fiberglass fall off the part. So here we're just using the resin sparingly, doing one coat of everything, and then we can come back through later and add another coat of resin, another coat of fiberglass, and make this edge really nice and strong. Alright, so we did that first layer of fiberglass. I built this part out quite a bit, and that's because it's kind of hard to reach back in here super far back here. So I thought if we wanted to do a couple bolts in the middle, that would be fine. If we can get all the way back here, that would also be fine. I just wanted enough to work with. So we got plenty there. You can see we've got the fiberglass going up under the edge. And right now we've got some dangly pieces here. I'm gonna come back through with the air saw, just trim those off. And then what I'm gonna do is fit the fender back up on here. I'm gonna draw a line where the edge of the fender is, and then I'm gonna trim everything away that is not where that line is. And then we're going to grind the edge of this fender. So the edge that meets the car, which would be this edge, we're gonna grind that back probably an inch. And then I'm going to fiberglass this part here that we grind back to that flange on the car, and that should make it fit pretty much perfect. Alright, so that fender fit up pretty nice. It's actually already looking good. Just gonna mark my line here where it needs adjusted. Alright, you can see now we've got this edge pretty much cut back to where it goes back here in the back, because I knew that was going to be flush. But up here you could see the black line. That's where we need to cut, you know, this part of the fiberglass away so that our flange on the fender will end right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to gently cut this, probably with a cutoff wheel. See where we overlap up here. Cut that off with a cutoff wheel, get rid of it, and then we're going to do an extra layer of fiberglass here, an extra layer of fiberglass under here. Since all of this has been rounded off, that's what I did. It'll make the fiberglass easy to conform around this curve. Fiberglass doesn't want to bend around 90-degree corners, so if you can come in and do glass work and then come back and, you know, grind a nice radiused edge on it, the next layer of fiberglass will go on much easier. So that's what we did here. So I got this edge ground. You can see we did about an inch, inch and a half in all the way around. And now I'm going to get this fitted up here for one last test before we glass the fender to the flange. All right, so I'm going to show you what we got here. So we got that inside flange trimmed really nice. Got the ground lip here. If we push this back here, I'm going to zoom out. If we push this back, we can see that that lands right on that edge. It's going to be a really nice fitment. The only spot that has a tiny dip is like right here, and it's maybe, truthfully, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So that can be blended with either fiberglass or filler. It'll probably end up being fiberglass just because I got to lay this edge anyway. So I think we are ready to go. So I'm gonna make up some like chop strand, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shred it up and mix it into kind of sort of a paste, and that way I can put it on this flange and squish the fender up against it. It'll fill that groove all the way through, and then that's pretty much it. You will let it kick off, and then we can pull this fender off here in maybe an hour, hour and a half. What we're going to do is we're going to take some fiberglass here. I got a bunch of pieces that I cut for another project we didn't end up using, and we're going to turn it into, I call it a fiberglass paste. You can call it whatever you want, but essentially we just cut this up into little small strips, pieces, whatever you want to do here, and make it as small as possible. We're going to fill this cup with a bunch of these little pieces. So what we end up with is a bunch of little pieces like this, and then we can stir resin into this and turn into a thick pasty substance that we can glue that together with. So I'm going to finish cutting up a couple sheets of this, and then we'll be back when we mix it together. Okay, so spent the last few minutes cutting up some of this chop strand. You can see we got quite a bit in here now. Cup's about a quarter way full if you smash it down, about halfway full fluffed up. And what I'm going to do is fill this thing up probably about, you know, this high, and we're going to mix all this together and let it break down before we add the hardener. All right, added in that resin. See, I haven't mixed it yet. We're going to slowly just mix this in. You can see everything starting to soak it up. I'm going to stir this in, let it sit for about 5 minutes or so. Once it gets all nice and thick, that's what we're looking for here. You want to cut the strands pretty short, that way they'll conform really well. You don't want big long strands in here, you want them to be nice and short. Slowly it'll get this nice consistency. Like I said, if you let it sit a few minutes, that'll soften up that binder that's in this chop strand. It'll stir together easier. You want to make sure that we can blend all the hardener into this and get it really well stirred in. So I'm going to let that sit about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to come back with some hardener. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. Let this sit. Now, one thing you don't want to do is mix a whole bunch of air bubbles into it. So when you're stirring it, you kind of want to just smush it against the sides. Smush it against the sides. You don't want to, you know, whip it around a whole bunch. Just smush it and let it push into that fiber. But I feel pretty good about that. That's nice and stirred. It's broken down. Most of the pieces are broke down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some MEKP. This is the fiberglass resin hardener. Now you'll notice my MEKP is red, and that's because I like red hardener. This is called Vanishing Red. It's the exact same stuff as clear. The difference is, and when it cures, it turns the color you're, you know, naturally used to, that kind of yellowish amber color. Visual indicator that the fiberglass is cured. The other nice thing is you can kind of tell how much you put in. If you were, you know, not measuring it, you could tell kind of by the color. But for the most part, I just like this. I can see it better. I can see if it's mixed in better. And like I said, you have a visual indicator of if it's cured or not. So that's kind of nice too. But it's really good when you're doing something like this. You can see if it's mixed or not. Just clear MEKP, it's really hard to tell if it's mixed. Now, if I was doing a project and using like a surfboard resin or some kind of resin where I'm going for a visually clear product in the end, I would not use this because it does leave the slightest hint of color. So if you were going to do an absolute clear, like skin, like skinning apart or whatever like that, you wouldn't want to use the red. I would use the standard clear hardener at that point. But now you can see there's no visual red color in here. That's really nice and blended. So that's the consistency we're looking for. We don't want it to drip, so you don't want it so wet that it drips. We want it to stay together and kind of, you know, hold on to that fiberglass. So I'm going to go over here and we're going to get started on putting it on the car. Tried to get this at an angle where everybody can see what I'm doing, but I'm just going to put it on the car here. I got doubled up gloves, so we don't have to worry about it leaking through. But what I'm just going to do is grab a little bit like this, make it into kind of the shape that we want, and we're just going to stick it right on there. We don't care if it's hanging below or above, it doesn't matter. We're gonna grind all the extra off later. We just want a nice, good, fat, thick coat of this that we can squish. Pull off one of my layers of gloves. So I got a clean hand. This is why we wear 2 layers, or so that you don't get a hole poked. Now I've got the tape. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start the tape at the top. We're gonna put this fender where it belongs. So right about there. We're just gonna tie it back. All right. That is exactly what I wanted, so very happy with this so far. Looks really good. So you can see that edge all the way along. It's filled. Got fiberglass squished in there all the way down here into the bottom. So the nice part is when this comes apart, we can just take a grinder and knock this top edge off, and that'll be form fitted to the car at that point. Okay, well, it's been about an hour. Is cured out. You can tell because one has changed color, but it's also hard. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back through with a grinder, and I'm gonna grind off all the stuff that is unnecessary along this seam line, and that should allow us to put a couple of what do we call those things, wedges behind here, and hopefully get this fender to pop off. Right now it's on there completely by itself. Doesn't have any fasteners or anything on. It's essentially glued to the car right now. And so once we grind this off, like I said, we'll try to separate it from the car, and then we can go back through and work that flange area, make sure it's nice and strong, and that'll be pretty much it. Now here you can see I got out a putty knife and a hammer, and I'm just gently tapping that putty knife to release that flange from the side of the car. And then I'm going to come back through with a wedge and just kind of get it to pry apart if I need to. Now I'm working on the inside a little bit here, and I didn't end up needing a wedge at all. It just popped right off. Alright, so I got the fender removed from the car. You can see this is the flange side that was against the car, and it turned out pretty good. I had a little section here split, so I just went back through and put a piece of glass across there and got it kicked off. And then this is the inside of the fender, and you can see we've got these dangly bits here, and we need to grind those off. And then what we'll do is we'll fiberglass from here up into this flange, and that should be the final bit for fiberglass on here. And then I'm just going to trim down this so it's a nice consistent edge and drill the holes to mount it, and we're pretty much set. I am going to come in here on this back piece here and just cut a nice radius on here so it looks nice. We don't need quite that much. I overdid it just in case, but we can cut a little bit of that off. I did one more final pass on the inside of this to get that flange glassed in. You see it looks really nice, very consistent, smooth. That's what we want. All this is bonded really well now. So all we gotta do tomorrow is drill some holes in this flange, get this temporarily put up onto the car, and then we can do a little bit of body work on this edge. I'm not gonna go crazy on it because like I said, they still got a bunch of work to do on the car. So somebody's gonna have to come back through after they do the metal work and finish that, but I probably will do just a little bit to clean it up. But overall, I'm really happy with how this flange turned out. It's going to be nice and strong. It's going to support this fender. And tomorrow we can knock out the other half. Now, guys, I want to say thank you for watching. You know, we've done these videos, how-tos and things. We do these so that you guys can get an idea of how something like this is done if you're working on a project of your own at home. All right, everybody. So you saw where we started and you're seeing where we're at. So we did not fully gap this out. Now you can see it fits very nice, very clean, but they still have to do some body work to this car. So we got it as close as we can get it until this thing goes to the body shop and gets the rest of it squared up. But you can see we got a super nice edge here, matches the body near perfect. That problem area in here, we were able to solve 99% of that. I mean, there is a tiny little edge here, but they can fix all this with body work in the future. The reason we're not doing it is because this car, as you can see, all the dents and everything that still need done, I would just be adding on to this, not knowing where we were going with it. So what we did was we got it as close as perfect to what is here right now. And then when the body shop comes back through, they can button up the rest of it. But I think this thing fits absolutely amazing. You guys saw the beginning, you saw how bad it fit, and now you can see how doing that process with that inner edge, you know, that flange on the inside that we did, and then coming back through, filling and body working just that very edge. And there's almost no filler on here because we were able to bring that fiberglass all the way up to the top. So we want to use as little filler as possible, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think the client's going to be very happy. We were able to get the wheel centered in the wheel well, and he's got plenty of clearance for his tire and all that now. So I think these fit up great. I want to thank everybody for tuning in for this Whatever Wednesday. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and a thumbs up. If you have a friend that's into fiberglass or custom building, you know, we do all kinds of stuff. This was just our Whatever Wednesday is kind of our day that we do a how-to video or, you know, something like that. But we got big builds coming. We still got the big build for the Audi, and we've got a project you guys don't even know about yet that we're going to be releasing this coming week. So stay excited, stay tuned in, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.